Hello and welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Did you know that the average person spends 1 hour and 40 minutes a day on social media? There's almost 7 million bloggers in the world today and another 12 million that blog using various social media platforms. Whether you're looking to amp up your Instagram profile, get more followers on Twitter, or maybe hire an influencer to take your product to new heights, this is the show for you. Tonight, we're going to learn how to master the art of social media. Here with us right now in the studio to share their best tips and tricks are two of Ottawa's most prolific bloggers and influencers, Chantal Sarkisian, otherwise known as Chansey, and Katie Hession. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for joining us. Later tonight, we'll also be hearing from fashion blogger Chica and social media guru Erica Eiffel, who owns social media agency Not In My Color. So make sure that you stick around for that. Also, if you have any questions at any point throughout the show for our guests, please call 613-728-1001. That's 613-728-1001, and our guests will be happy to hear from you. So both of you ladies started your journey into social media as a hobby, and then you later on transitioned into a full-time career. I'd like to hear about how your journey came about. Katie, let's start with you.
Sure. So I moved back to Ottawa about 4 years ago. And in my previous life, I was a full-time special education teacher, and that was in Toronto. I moved here, I was on maternity leave, then found out I was pregnant with my second child, so I was on this extended maternity leave. And I really wanted a way to sort of rediscover Ottawa. I grew up here, so I was returning home. I also had a huge interest in photography, in fashion, and also just wanting to know where Ottawa's hotspots were. So I started Yow City Style, and when it started, it was me with my camera taking pictures of local tastemakers and finding out really what was going on in the city.
Were you experimenting as you went along, or did you always know what you were doing and where you were headed?
It was definitely a lot of experimenting with my camera. I think I've always had an eye for photography, but really getting into the technical aspects of using the camera, it was definitely a good practice in that. And then also just getting to know people. But then, so what happened, like I said, I was on maternity leave, and I really didn't want the camera on me at first. But then eventually I started to get a little bit more sleep and less bags under my eyes. And people started saying to me, you're actually quite fashionable yourself, you should be featuring yourself. And I was getting a reputation in the city as being a fashion enthusiast. So I did start featuring myself a little bit more too. And one of the things really with social media, people, they wanted to know who was behind this project. So having my face there, it allowed people to connect with the Instagram channel a little bit more.
It takes the anonymity away.
Exactly, yeah. So it became more my own personal voice, I guess.
What about you, Chantal?
So I'm in marketing communications, so it was sort of a natural. I've always been obsessed with social media. Anytime any new channel started, I always the first one to open my account. And it was sort of
an early adopter of technology.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah. Definitely for social media as far as technology goes. But so yeah, I started blogging and playing with Blogger, which was one of the first platforms. June 2010 was my first blog post, and it was sort of a creative journal. And looking back, it has a lot of recurring themes. I used to blog a lot about fashion, but didn't ever think that one day that I would have a fashion blog. And it just, one blog led to another. I did a mommy blog when I was on mat leave, and I just like to write and share stories in my voice. And so so it kind of evolves with me. And then, I used to do makeup. I had a makeup blog, and this is the first time where I have a consolidated blog, mostly on fashion, but I do beauty, I do Ottawa lifestyle. I also like photography, and so it's what I do now is an opportunity to do everything that I love, all my passions, and for the first time it makes sense to put them all together.
And what were you hoping to achieve when you first started out blogging?
It was just a creative outlet, just somewhere that I wanted to share my thoughts, my story, my journey. I'm from Toronto, and I moved here for school, and I stayed here, and I just felt like starting a blog was a way to discover the city. So it's a little bit of what Katie did, but a little bit reversed at the same time. So I used to do, I was the first one to populate all the Urban Spoon, like all the restaurant reviews, and I still do it like on Yelp and all that. So I always had that kind of content creation in me.
You had the urge to inform too, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And to share my opinion or my perspective on something, and also to encourage other people to join me on that adventure. So, and I just wanted to say that part of it was sort of to put Ottawa on the map too, because my friends from Toronto had no idea, it has a reputation of being kind of a quiet town and all this, but there's so much going on, and this is our chance to really showcase like the best of the city.
I find that to be so true for people who are actually from Ottawa as well. They don't necessarily always know what's going on in town. So how many followers do you have today?
On Instagram, I'm almost gonna break 9,000, so I'm almost there. But it's a game of up and down. I don't lose sleep over it.
Sure,
but
yeah, it's fickle, isn't it?
Yeah. Love to break the 10,000.
Yeah. What about you, Katie?
I'm at 14,300 now.
That's amazing. And I guess you never even had a clue that you would get to that point one day when you first started.
No, it was really just a hobby, and then it just snowballed, and now it's a huge part of my life for sure.
What are the biggest changes that you've noticed on the social media landscape since you've started? And would you say they're all positive? Are there things that you wish were there that aren't?
I think it's becoming, we know that it's not going anywhere now. I think at first, I think it was butting heads a little bit with traditional journalism. Especially if you think of fashion bloggers, they started to take front row seats at Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, and I think, the real fashion journalists weren't too happy about that. But yeah, now the voice of a blogger or an Instagrammer, it's more immediate. They've got all these followers. And then what I've noticed, I have friends who are editors for traditional media, and they're actually realizing they need to keep up with the times and are putting a lot of effort into their own social media channels.
In fact, I read that blogs are the 5th most trusted source of online accurate information, which is crazy. I myself am a sort of a traditional print journalist, and I remember a time where you actually had to physically leave your computer and go to the library to go to the 2 computers that had the internet on them. And there was a lot of there was a lot of pushback against what we call today as the citizen journalist, against the blogger. But now people are increasingly turning to blogs, to Instagram, to find out where to go for dinner, to decide, where to give their business, what to spend their money on. So it's really incredible.
I think a lot of it boils down to building trust with the blogger, and so it's a person that you follow, and you follow their journey. Sometimes you connect with them, and then sometimes they'll present something new, and you're like, well, I like everything else they do, so I think I'd like this as well. So you're sort of matching tastes together, and by sort of appreciating the whole life of the blogger, you'll be kind of open to trying other things. And then I think that's why the whole advertising piece works so well, because the person will, like the blogger, the influencer, will naturally infiltrate all this stuff into their life, and their followers will be like, yeah, I could use that, or I can see myself wearing that, or that sort of thing. So you're inspiring your followers and bringing them along this journey, because you're growing, and then their interests are growing. So it's kind of like a story at the same time.
So what are some ways that you can build that trust and to sort of build that aura of authenticity around you? How do you get from Joe Schmo who posts a few things on a blog and nobody cares to, I'm Chantal Sarkisian and I have 9,000 people who care what I think and are checking out my Instagram posts every day?
Well, I do blog. I'm like an open book, so my followers pretty much know everything about me, and that's just my style. That's how I am. That's the person that I am. I'm very authentic, and it's the same person that you get in real life is going to be the same person on social. And we were talking about this earlier, is I have endometriosis, and I actually blog about that. And when I do, I find like I'll get a few people commenting saying, thank you for sharing your story, I have it as well. And it's amazing how people open up to you, and that's the connection. That's being vulnerable will help you connect and just be sort of like a real person to your followers.
Was it scary the first time you sat down and decided, I'm going to write a blog post about my medical condition, I'm going to share it with strangers on the internet?
Not so much the endometriosis piece, but more the fact that I was dealing with like infertility and that sort of thing. So that's like a very vulnerable.
Loaded.
Yeah. So the endometriosis piece is, I had my surgery and I can help people sort of navigate the healthcare system and tell them what to do and that kind of thing. But the infertility part is like, that's where it hits home. So that's a little bit harder to talk about, but I talk about it, so it's too late to go back now.
Yeah. So be really open and honest about your experiences. And what has been your experience, Katie? Like, what do you think has been the most successful for you in engaging your audience?
So I guess with almost all social media, whether you're a professional influencer or just a regular person, it is sort of looked at as the highlight reel of your life. So I would agree that, obviously it's nice when I'm really dolled up and taking a photo, but then on my Instagram stories, I'll hop on with no makeup, and I would say a good 75% of my life I'm living in yoga wear and not really that dressed up, and I'm okay to show that as well. So I think just showing, the good, the bad, and the ugly, even though
it's not just a fantasy then that you're giving to your viewers.
Yeah, and I think people really do appreciate it when you share those more personal parts of your life. I think Chantal shares a little bit more than I do, but again, for me, I've seen that journey where I went from not really being a face of my channel to becoming more and more of it. So as time goes on, I am sharing a little bit more, and I do notice that I have a lot more engagement with my followers.
Do you ladies feel like you've made it in the world of being an influencer and blogging?
I've made myself really happy, and I'm happy with where I am. I think there's a lot of influencers out there who have, millions of followers, and that's huge. And I don't really have a goal to get there. I think both Chantal and I have quite an Ottawa focus, so maybe on an Ottawa scale, we know that we have a really nice size audience here. Yeah. But
I would say, like, for myself, it's not so much that I've made it as far as present day. So today I am better than the person that I was yesterday, that sort of thing. And I do like set myself some goals, and my next sort of bigger goal is like I'd love to hit the 10,000 mark on Instagram, or carve out more time to actually to add content on my blog that's personal. Like, I love personal blogging, but lately I've just been getting caught up with a lot more sponsored posts, which I'm like blessed that I could get the opportunity to do that, but then you kind of lose the chance to just create your own content. And that's personally something that I'd like to do more of, is carve out more time to do the things that I want to do, and sprinkle that amongst all the other sponsored stuff.
That trade-off is so true for everything we do in life.
Yeah.
We're just about to go to break, but when we come back, I want to see some of the Instagram posts that both of you ladies have enjoyed the most success with, as well as hear some of your tips and tricks and techniques, some tools that you would recommend for people just starting out, and any other thoughts in the world of being an influencer. So we'll be right back. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break. Hi, welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're in the studio tonight talking about how to master the art of social media with bloggers and influencers Katie Hession and Chantal Sarkeesian. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies. I would like to bring up some of your favorite Instagram posts and deconstruct them and talk about what made them work and what made them maybe not work or what you could have done better. So maybe we could pull up Katie Hession's Instagram posts to start, and we can take a look. I know you had one with your daughter, was it?
Yeah.
And I thought that was absolutely adorable.
Chantal.
There's Chantal. Oh, there you go. There's the one. Yeah, that just melts my heart.
Yeah.
Aside from the obvious, what makes this particular Instagram post so good?
So I think this is actually the first time my daughter was ever featured on my social media, and I mean, she's cute as a button, so
yes.
Of course people are going to press like. But this also tied in with International Women's Day.
Okay.
So the messaging here, I think I quoted it here, it's "Here's to strong women, may we know them, may we be them, may we raise them." And yeah, I mean, I'm a mom, and I think, like I said, a lot of people didn't know much about me when I first started, and I kind of surprised everyone that I was a mom.
Oh, that was your first time. Okay.
I don't know. I think maybe I had mentioned that I was a mom before that post, but
it's not real until you see a visual, right?
Yeah. So I think the fact that Maeve is adorable wearing glasses, and then also it tied into a current event of international.
There's a news hook.
Yeah, and I probably would have used some hashtags that were really popular on that day, and so it was just made for a really popular post.
That's cute. Let's see what else you've got. You sent us a couple other images as well. Here's a Halloween house in the Glebe, and I live in the Glebe, so I've actually walked by that house on more than one Halloween. Super cool. What made this one work?
So this one actually kind of surprised me, and that's the thing. Like, I usually put a lot of thought into my posts, but I was driving down 4th Avenue, saw this house, and was like, holy moly. I took a photo just with my iPhone, and I posted it. And really, it's so outrageous.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of Ottawa followers, so obviously I think like a lot of people are like, "Whoa, that's in Ottawa, I've got to check that out." And that's one of the things I really love to do, is find those hidden gems in our city and post about it. So if I am that first person to post about a cool restaurant or, a fun event coming up, then I find it gets a lot of engagement.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there was a third one that you sent us as well.
Yeah.
And to me, this is, it's just like a coffee shop, Arlington 5.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to post this one?
Well, it was National Coffee Day.
Okay.
So again, like I actually there's a website you can go to and find out, like, I know National Cat Day is coming up, or there's really a day to celebrate anything, like tacos, lipstick,
ice
who knows?
cream.
Yeah.
So today was like chocolate cupcake day or something.
Okay. So I do like to post about those days when they come along, and maybe it is because of using hashtags. I feel this was actually one of my first posts to really crack 500, and I just remember like looking at my phone, and it was like all these like notifications. I was like, what is going on here? And I think that maybe it was featured on one of the featured Instagram posts that day because of the theme.
Okay.
But and also Arlington 5 is a really popular hangout, and
I think it was new at the time as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't, because it's already a year old or something.
And what's the website that you use to see if it's Cupcake Day or Ice Cream
Oh my
Day?
goodness. I think if you were to
Google it?
Google International Day calendar, then you
That's
can
great,
find
because
out.
that gives you that news hook, that sense of timeliness that is so important.
Yeah.
I want to see some of your Instagram
for
posts,
sure.
Chantal. Let's post some of them. You had one where you were drinking beer. You had another one where you were at the Rideau Center.
Yeah, so those actually, I think. Oh yeah,
here.
so this was at the beer market. We were celebrating Oktoberfest. This was actually a sponsored post, and if we're talking about social media strategy, so we have to claim ad. So hashtag ad is the second hashtag in there. And I don't know, if it's hearsay or not, but when I do use sponsored or ad, it does bring the engagement down. And so what I'll do is I'll carve out some of the budget to boost the post. And so I did use, I usually do like a 24-hour boost, and that obviously helps to beef up the likes. But Katie and I have both been doing it, and we hire our photographer to come out and take our photos, like when we do different events and that sort of thing, just to get the really high quality image, because that's what people like. And then of course I always do like the fashion twist, and I try to get dolled up. I know
Yeah.
that's what people like to see, so I weave that into the story.
It's a nice part of the package.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you had a couple other posts on there that I wanted
Yeah.
to check out. There was one, the Rito
Yeah, so
Center.
that
I mean, my
was
eye immediately goes to your
the
pink boots. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
The top from
Yeah.
Vincent's local shop on Preston.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, they're awesome. And yeah, the boots. So I got a lot of, so the post was about Rito Center and their event for university students, but I think more people commented on my boots and my top.
Yeah.
So again, it's like weaving the fashion with the work that I'm doing, just to create more interest.
Got a thread that goes into the narrative.
Yeah.
We actually have a question from one of our viewers on Facebook. Bob wanted to know, he has a real hard time managing multiple social platforms and was wondering if there's a tool that's available that can kind of condense everything or just help stay on top of everything.
Yeah, actually there's the tool Hootsuite, which I don't use it myself, but it does help kind of consolidate all your channels. So if you have Twitter and Facebook, and you can have multiple Twitter accounts, multiple Facebook, the free version of Hootsuite is limited to I think maybe 3 or 4 accounts. And basically you can use it to monitor, you can schedule your posts, you can do any engagement on it. You can sort of monitor hashtags or words or that sort of thing. So it's kind of like your media monitoring. You might know about media monitoring, but it's kind of like that one-stop shop.
There's
if this then that.
So IFTTT.
If this then that.
Yeah. So you can program it. So if, let's say I were to, Instagram is my main channel, but I also will post the same content to Facebook and also to Twitter. So I can actually set it up through IFTTT that whatever posts on Instagram, it will automatically post to those other 2 channels for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of
like automatic sharing
sort of tools.
So you can program all kinds of things.
I've heard you ladies also talk about how much you like, is it Social Blue Book?
So so often people will ask us, how do we know how much we're worth? And so for anybody who maybe is wondering that, Social Blue Book is sort of the only place that we've discovered you can go, you can plug in your channel, and they'll give you an estimate about how much a tweet is worth on your account or an Instagram post. I wouldn't say it's anything we really use that often, but I think when it's a new world, influencer marketing, and there's a lot of questions. And it was the first place that I went to, and I was like, oh, okay, so somebody's giving me a ballpark figure here. And so if you're starting out, that's a good place.
Yeah, it helps to sort of validate like what you're charging for the work that you do. And yeah, like if you feel that you deserve more, or so Katie and I are in a way micro-influencers because people know us in the city, and to some degree that's actually more valuable, and you could charge a premium because you know that your audience is really targeted, and we can sort of guarantee that people will see this content. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, because you also have to work within the budget if you want to of the client and that sort of thing. But this is a great website to sort of like, it gives you that sort of baseline level, and then you can work with it from there.
I love that, and that's a great segue to my next question, where if I'm an entrepreneur or I'm a business and I want to hire an influencer, what can the influencer do for me, and how do I choose the right one?
So the way I always tell, so people don't know what influencer marketing is. That's like the industry term, but basically think of it as it's part of your advertising budget, your promotion budget. So set aside some dollars to work with an influencer who can like live and breathe your product or your service and help you promote your next event, that sort of thing. So it's definitely a promotional channel, and I always suggest just it's part of your marketing budget. So it's not, I know we get reached out a lot about, oh, can you do this for free and this, and not
for
realizing
exposure.
Yeah. Read the article on my blog about exposure. But it's just, it's your marketing budget, and we're just another channel. So you could pay a magazine, you could put a flat ad on a magazine, or you can pay an influencer to do a little video or to talk about your stuff, or create content which you can share. Yeah. So it's a little bit more dynamic, and I think that's why people are so much more into it than a flat ad in a magazine, really.
And there's so many influencers out there to choose from. How would I choose the right one?
Well, I guess you need to sort of decide what your target audience is. And right now, so speaking just from Instagram, if you are a business profile on Instagram, you have access to all the analytics of the demographics of your following. So I know I have 70% women. I know that almost 85% live in the Ottawa, Gatineau, Chelsea region. I know that they're mostly millennial age, and I have all that information. And I'm actually, I share that. I have a media kit, and all of those stats are on there. Chantal has the same. And especially because we like to work with local businesses, it's important that they know, we could have, there could be an influencer in town who has thousands of followers, but really how many of them live in our city where your business is?
And how many of them are real?
Well, that too. So
that's another issue.
Yeah, and so there are, thank goodness, there is some more transparency happening in the whole world of influencer marketing, and a really great tool for businesses is socialblade.com, and you can plug in an Instagram account, a YouTube channel, anything where there's followers, and it will show you their behavior of followers over, like for me, it goes right back to when I started. And it's a nice graph, and if you see ever that there's a big spike, then you would maybe think that somebody bought followers, because to have a huge spike like that, like I've heard that even if Kanye West regrammed your photo, that you're not going to get a giant spike of thousands of followers. So you want to look at that graph and see that it's a nice steady bunny hill.
Good point.
Yeah, and then also it gives you the behavior for maybe the past 10 days, and it will show you how they follow or get unfollowed or unfollow other people, because there is a technique of growing your audience by following and unfollowing, which it works to build up numbers, but it questions sort of what the real the value of those followers.
Yes, because at the end of the day, you're better off having 10, let's say, clients who purchase versus 100,000 with
looking.
nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's not even like a targeted audience. So it's the same classic formula as any like marketing or promotional strategy, is have a target audience, and you're better off speaking to the right group that are actually going to buy in or be influenced versus just speaking to the masses and having no impact at the end of the day.
I love it. Ladies, unfortunately, I'm sad to say we're almost at the end of our segment. Did you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
It's never too late to start.
And follow us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll be right back with blogger Chica Chica and social media guru Erica Eiffel. See you in a minute. Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Does social media give you a headache? Well, we have two guests in the studio with us tonight who are going to change all that for you. They'll teach you how to harness social media to be the most effective tool that you've ever used for communication. First up, we have fashion blogger Shika President, otherwise known as Shika Chica. Thank you so much for joining us, Shika.
My pleasure.
And then we have the owner of social media agency Not My Color, Erica Eiffel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hi. So I'd like to hear about how you got started. Let's start with you, Shika. How did you get started on this journey of social media?
Yeah, for sure. It was almost like a hidden talent that I just didn't really engage in, essentially. So a year and a half ago, I was marketing manager for NGOs. And what happened is I got sick and took a little bit of a bed rest, came back and started working for my dad's company again. Where I did management there and just overseeing it. And I just felt like there was not really a creative outlet. So I decided, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning on an April Sunday, and I was like, I should start blogging and have kind of write, because I love to write. Like, I write for myself, but I wasn't able to, have that platform where I could express it to others and connect with people. So I bought a domain, and I'm doing it now. So I focus specifically on fashion and travel, and I also do a lot of reflection pieces as well to connect with my audience, just to let them know that they have someone else who probably didn't think that they could do it, and then today I am. So
you persevered, and now you're here.
Yeah.
Love it. And Erica, you started your blog almost a decade ago when we barely even had smartphones. So
yeah, when TypePad was still around.
That's crazy. Was MySpace still around? My goodness.
I think it was just ending.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. It can be buried with everything else.
So how did you get into this field?
I started off, I also do makeup, so I started off writing about makeup for women of color defined in Canada, because it was difficult 10 years ago. And then then people started asking me questions. So I was kind of like, well, I should just write about makeup. And then makeup turned into, I started writing more serious pieces, more takes on current events, which is a switch. But what I found was that there were a lot of, I would say, women who were women's rights advocates who were following my makeup blog. So I thought, wow, this is a great segue into writing something more serious and more in depth. So I did that, and then about a while ago, so over a year ago, maybe 2, a friend of mine came to me and she's like, can you do social media for me? I'll pay you. And I was like, oh. She's like, you're really good at it. You seem to be able to get engagement and stuff. I'm like, all right. So I did, and then.
Did you know that about yourself at the time? When someone else identified you as being good at it, did you already know that?
I wasn't surprised, because I spent a lot of time on social. I've spent too much time on social media.
You're definitely one of those people who spends an hour and 40 minutes a day.
Oh, is that?
More like 5 hours?
Maybe a bit more. Twitter's a beast.
Yeah.
But I found what I loved about it is the engagement, is that you could talk to somebody about some random topic that, like, I love old movies and I'm a big Joan Crawford fan, and I could talk to somebody across, like, halfway across the world at like 2 in the morning, be like, didn't you love Rain? Didn't she try, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that kind of thing. That's what's so exciting, is that now we can arrange ourselves around similarities of taste and likes and so on and so forth. And I really do think that that's what the social media giants are always trying to encourage, because that means you'll spend more time on their site.
Yeah, absolutely. Shika, what has been your experience with your Instagram posts and your blog? What has worked for you and what hasn't along the way?
Yeah, so the first month was really just trial and error, because I literally would go to chapters, spend hours reading about photography and fashion. I didn't really have someone to kind of pull and mentor me initially. So what I did was I just started posting. The first time I started, I actually reached out to a local photographer here in Ottawa who just started. His name's Pedro. And we started taking pictures. He taught me about the camera, taught me about different apps, about just, editing and whatnot. And then as I went through, I started to figure out my theme, what I wanted to do. Did I want to focus on only fashion? Did I want to focus on inspiration and inspiring people? Or did I want to do a mixture? So as I did that, I kind of got to where I am right now, where I can get that theme, but also have the authenticity as well, and which is really important. And I think that's one of the biggest things is I've noticed what has allowed me to grow is the authenticity, just because people want to relate to you. And a perfect example is sometimes when you wake up in the morning and it's a Thursday and you just want the weekend to go. I want people to see my post and kind of like connect and be like, oh yeah, the weekend's coming, or I'm feeling tired, or if I'm doing a story and I'm like, I'm feeling really sick, but going to the gym, have that little motivation to get them through the weekend. So initially that's what I hope to do, and it works really well as well. As far as what I guess doesn't work, I can't really say it's the same for each person, because it depends on what your niche is, number one. Number two as well, it also depends on what your goal is. So my goal is to connect with people. So I want to have authenticity, connect, and also inspire them through fashion and travel. So yeah, I think that's the biggest words, is just trial and error.
Were there little rewards along the way that prompted you to keep going? Because I know it can be so intimidating and so frustrating. Yeah. What made you keep going?
To be honest, when I started networking with bloggers and people in Ottawa, so like I said, I did have a mentor. And I remember one time I'm like, I know someone's dog, I know what they ate last night, I know everything about them, but they don't know I know them. And I think we all live in a society where it's like the stalking society, where we have we look at people through Instagram. We spend hours, looking at them and like fantasizing about that image, right? But we never really have that face-to-face network and connection. So what I did is I started messaging a bunch of them and said like, oh, are you free on the weekend? And after trial and error, we finally found a time to go have lunch. We sat down and we learned about, the different apps we use.
You sent us a photo, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you could pull that photo up.
For sure.
These were just local bloggers from Ottawa. You were all gathered together for lunch at the Pure restaurant.
Yeah.
And you just messaged these people out of the blue, and they all came together?
We just, I just messaged them. I said, like, just, out of whim, and they were all able to come together. And at the end of it, they're like, we should do this more often, as if we waited so long. And I think that's one thing that I hope to do with my blog, specifically in Ottawa, is break that trend of just knowing someone and connecting or collaborating online, and add that face-to-face network and connection, because that's what's going to give it that extra, to your, that extra, I guess you can say, push in your Instagram, because there's so many of us that are blogging, like you said, and now journalists, it's slowly going into the social media. They're trusting bloggers instead. So what gives that extraness is just allowing to have that face-to-face network.
I love that you're putting on an event, Shika, is it Sunday, November the 5th?
Yeah, so it's going to be here in Ottawa. It's Sunday, November the 5th, and it's between 1 and 4. It's for bloggers, influencers, business owners, people who are maybe even wanting to do it like I was back then, and haven't really had that push or motivation to do it, or maybe they're scared to do it. So invite all of those people to come to the event. There will be refreshments as well. We'll be having Sage, Body Shop, Via Avec Moi, and other brands there to really give you an idea of what are the latest trends and how to use the products as well. And there will be a little bit of surprises and giveaways too.
Great.
So
How can people get tickets?
Beg your pardon?
How can people get tickets?
They can go online. It's just on our Facebook group. So Vogue Darling, you could just look it up. And
maybe we could pull up the image right now. There's an image that's sort of like a little invitation and a logo, and it basically says 1 till 4, Sunday, November 5th, and you can go to the Vogue Darling Facebook page.
It's on Eventbrite. You could buy it there. And the biggest thing too is I really want to give back as well. So what we'll be doing is voting on a poll for a charity of our choice. And for every ticket that is being sold, $5 will go to that charity. So not only are you able to have fun, network, but you're also making a difference. So.
And you're giving away 2 tickets for the show. What do people have to do to
so all you have to do is follow Ottawa Experts as well as myself. And then just comment on the latest post on my Instagram, just saying that you watched the show, and I'll put a little draw and you can win 2 tickets to the event.
Perfect. Yeah. I love it. When we come back from the break, Erica, I want to hear all about your podcasts and some of the tools that you've used and suggest using to your clients as well. So don't go away. We'll be right back with plenty more. Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're talking about how to master the art of social media with bloggers and social media experts, Socia President and Erica Eiffel. Erica, just before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about some of your favorite posts, and you have, in particular, a Facebook Live post.
I do.
Maybe we could pull that up. It did particularly well. It's one of you trying makeup on at a Sephora.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of my faves, and particularly because I went to Sephora on the Friday that Rihanna's Fenty Beauty collection was released.
And this was just recently.
This was just recently. I think it was September 20th or something like that. Yeah. And so I did a Facebook Live where the makeup artist was trying on makeup on me. Yeah. And so there's a reason I chose this particular frame, and it's because it's so unglamorous. And fact is that, as you can see, like, we got almost 10,000 views on that, and that's organic, no paid. So we were timely. Because we do a podcast, so we'll talk about that later, but because we're into current events and we like keeping abreast of current events. We know when these things are coming up. We know what people are talking about. We're in the conversation. We're engaging. We're doing all of that stuff. So because we knew this was a big thing that everybody in the makeup community was talking about, we went there. I went there and got my face done, and it did really well. And it also introduced a later beauty episode that Not in My Color produced. So we produced a makeup video. So that was an entryway into getting people to know about us, but also to introduce another project.
And that other project was your podcast?
The other project was had to do with the podcast. So I also co-host a podcast, Bad and Bitchy Podcast.
How long have you been doing that for?
Since International Women's Day, I think. So since March.
So not too long.
Not too long.
There it is, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
The Bad and Bitchy Podcast. So we're on iTunes, badandbitchy.com, and basically we take current events and we put an intersectional feminist lens on it. So that's part of our brand. It's part of the Not in My Color brand because Not in My Color authors it. Anyway, all this to say that you can use and remix content to get eyes not only on that piece of content, but your entire brand, your entire sort of social ecosystem, if you can connect them properly. And that's what we do for our clients.
And so you're the founder of the podcast, but there's also other women who work with you on
I'm
this?
a co-founder.
Okay.
I don't want to take any shine away from my co-hosts. So Erin G and Bailey Reed are the other two co-hosts. We do a weekly podcast. It is released on Tuesday. There we are.
Yeah.
And
So it's like a radio show, basically?
audio is everything in 2018.
Okay.
And the reason is because you can consume it passively.
So you
So
can
you
be
can-
driving, you can be cleaning the house.
We are trading in attention
Yeah.
and time.
Yeah.
So the thing about video is that video's, yes, more engaging, but you have to stop everything and watch a video. With audio, it's passive. You can be cleaning, you can be driving, you can be doing all these things. So audio really is, and the podcast really is on an upswing. It really is trending.
I love that. So
Yeah.
audio is a big trend for 2018. What else do you see coming around the corner?
More narration, more stories, more personal. The people who are good, the brands, and I'm not even talking about individuals, the brands that are really good at social media, I think of Lululemon, for example. They're responsive. They will interact with you. They'll actually have a conversation with you. And, you know, they'll converse with you on your habits and so on and so forth, which is brilliant because why wouldn't you want to know that, right?
Exactly.
And they also add rich images and rich text. So fonts are a big thing now to their images, and they actually introduce, if you go on their posts, they'll post something about National Coffee Day or something like that.
Right.
It's true, today is National Chocolate
Cupcake
Cupcake
Day.
Day. And any brand can post something about cupcakes. It doesn't have to be about you or your brand. And that's where we bring in the idea of adjacency. So in other words, I like coffee, you like coffee. I like your picture on coffee. Oh, that's cute. Let me check this out. What do you do? And that's how that's where you
It's
start
like the
seeing.
ripple effect.
It's the ripple effect.
Yeah.
We're all trying to build a community online, and the best brands build communities so that they have influencers who can go out and spread their brand. But you have to build a community first.
I love that. And Shika, you recently went to Lisbon. You went to Portugal on a little trip, and you posted a photo on Instagram, and we can pull that up right now. And it kind of tells the story of your trip. And there was something about that scene in Lisbon that sort of struck you. What made you decide to put it on Instagram?
So the reason why I wanted to choose this specific picture is just because
yeah.
it goes back to when I started blogging, and it's beautiful. I actually spent 2 weeks in Portugal. It was amazing. I recommend anyone go. But my friend and I were actually just walking. We stumbled upon this graffiti, and it's really well known in Portugal to have graffiti there. But if you can look at the picture, the woman's eyes are covered. And the caption that I wrote for it is don't be blinded by fear. And what I mean by that is when I started blogging, I was scared. I didn't have anyone to mentor me. I didn't have anyone to ask, and I knew deep inside that I could do it. But it was
That's so
just
true for so many of us. Many of us start out not really having anyone to ask.
exactly, and it just takes that extra, I guess, motivation or that person to tell you you can do it. And I wanted a lot of my followers to look at this and see, like, oh, if they are a creative person, do it. You know, your failure is just the first attempt. It doesn't mean that it's initially you're doomed or you can't do something. It's just a learning curve. So that's what I wanted to kind of connect with, and I actually did a blog post on this, talking about how I started my blog and kind of reflecting on how fear actually motivated me, and I took a negative feeling and pushed it out as a positive. And every time, you know, whether that's a new company collabs with me or someone wants to do a collaboration or even this event that I'm doing right now, I always remind myself that fear isn't a bad thing. It's just basically a feeling and emotion that really pushes you to do what your passion. So that's a great idea of how you can really bring authenticity to your blog and connect with your followers and your readers. So that's why I wanted to really.
I noticed an Instagram post, actually we don't have a visual of it, but I really liked it. You had a post of some crystals that that you carried around with you for positive feelings and emotions, and then you talked about actually losing those crystals. And I really liked that story, that narration that Erica was speaking to. It really did a lot for me in humanizing you as someone that's sort of anonymous and behind the computer screen.
Yeah, I can kind of do a short kind of story on that. But like I said, I was kind of in a rut a year and a half ago, and with my health not doing well and having to leave my position because of my health and having to start that all over again and find a passion to take me through my career and just have a creative outlet, I started developing crystals. And, you know, to each his own, like not everyone is into it, but I started bringing them as like a good luck. And I wanted to connect with my followers. So there's me taking a picture, and I'm terrified because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like you never know what you know you do know your audience, but you don't know at the same time, right? Because you don't know them in depth of what their interests are and whatnot, to a certain extent. But so essentially, I posted it. And surprisingly, people responded and were like, I was into crystals, or I've always wondered about it. How are you liking it? And that was actually one of my favorite posts because that was probably the one that I almost connected the most in comparison to also the other one I showed you too. Just because I was, you know, authentic with them, and I told them a little story behind it, and they loved it. And you can never really go wrong with being yourself. So
yeah, so true, so true. Erica, when you have clients come to you for a social media consultation, what are some key pieces of advice that you leave them with?
Number one, like I said, your first job is to try and build a community around your brand. That's when you're able to do that, that's when you start to see the return on investment. Also, a lot of times they'll leave, sometimes I think they leave more confused, because I talk a lot about like you were saying, authenticity. Yeah. It's very important to build your brand around your values and whatever brand values you may have and your mission. It's very important to know those things before
work to determine
before you go out into social media, or else you'll seem confused and then people won't trust you. Mm-hmm. You also want to establish yourself as an expert within your field. That can be done a myriad of ways, by blogging, for example. I'm coming to you for crystals, by the way, if I ever do crystals.
Great, we'll go crystal shopping.
There you go. But this is an example of how you meet people and spread yourself as an expert in your field. Yeah.
It's a stepping stone for forming relationships, not a substitute, right?
That's right. Yeah. Before, marketing and advertising was very broadcasty. It was one way, and it doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. Marketers, advertisers, social media experts, we don't decide what good content is. Everybody else decides. Absolutely. The people who consume the content decide whether or not it's good. They decide whether or not you connect with them. They decide whether or not, they have a lot of power. And I think that the sooner that businesses understand that and understand the fact that social media is not a short-term thing, don't look at one post and think you've made it. It really is a breadth of work, and you have to develop an ecosystem to be able to not only perfect the operations, but the content management also, and then the engagement, and then the analytics.
We only have a couple minutes before the end of our show, but you're giving something away today, Erica. Can you tell us about that?
I am. I'm giving away a free social media audit. So I will go into your social media channels, and I'll look around, and I'll rummage around, and I'll give tips on how you can do better, what's wrong, what may be working, where you're going, that kind of thing, in a very kind of high level format. And when you book a consultation with Not In My Color, with one of us, you will be able to get that free social media.
Very neat. So how can people do that?
My website, notinmycolor.com, and Facebook too.
So just mention they saw you on the show today?
Just mention that you saw me on the show, like my page, and then connect with me. Message me, send an email, call me. I'm all over the place. We're all over the place.
As we all should be.
As we all should be.
And Shika, just one more time, you've got a special event coming up on Sunday, the 5th of November. Maybe we can throw that graphic up on the screen one last time.
Yeah, so you could either go to my website, it's chicachica.com, and it's right on there.
Great.
Or you could go on the events on Facebook and just put in Vogue Darling and it'll pop up. You could buy tickets there as well. It's on Eventbrite, and yeah, it's a great event. $5 goes to charity for each ticket, like I said, and great giveaways and possibly surprise discounts to those who go. So yeah,
sounds wonderful. It really ties into what we were talking about in terms of not just keeping it all on screen and behind the computer, but also real relationships. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to come back next week. Have a great night.